They say family is everything, but what do you do when family is the one who stabs you in the back? I never thought I'd be in this position sitting here, staring at an empty bank account, trying to figure out how I'm going to tell my 7-year-old son that the surgery I promised him isn't happening. 2 days ago, everything was fine. I had spent 2 years saving up $112,000 for Noah's surgery, a procedure that would fix his legs and allow him to walk and run like other kids. Every extra shift, every sacrifice, every skipped night out had been for that fund. It wasn't an extravagant amount, but for someone like me working factory shifts while raising a kid alone, it was everything. And now, it was gone. I noticed the missing money during my lunch break at work. I logged into my account like I always did, just to move some funds around, and that's when I saw it. A zero balance. Transfers had been made over the past week, small at first, maybe to avoid suspicion, but the final one wiped everything clean. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake, a glitch. I called the bank, my hands shaking, but it was real. The transactions were made from my IP address. Then I saw her Instagram story. My cousin, Laura, had moved in with my sister Emily a few months ago after losing her job. She'd always been around, spending time with Noah, asking about his surgery, checking in on how much more I had to save. I thought she was just being supportive. Now, I realized she had been gathering information. The Instagram post was simple. A glass of champagne at an airport lounge. Paris, here I come. Hashtag living my best life. Something felt wrong. My gut twisted, but I wasn't sure why until I saw the next post. A shot of her designer luggage. The same bag she had once raved about but could never afford. That's when the cold realization hit me. I called Emily immediately. Where did Laura get the money for this trip? Emily hesitated. She said she had been saving up. She also told me you helped her out, that you gave her a loan. A loan? I felt sick. My own cousin had stolen from me and lied to everyone about it. I tried calling Laura, but she ignored my calls. I texted no response. Meanwhile, her vacation updates kept coming. A picture at the Eiffel Tower, a shopping spree at a designer boutique, a rooftop dinner, wine glass in hand. The final straw came when I finally got a hold of her. Laura, where's my money? I asked, my voice barely steady. Oh, come on, Jake. You're being so dramatic. It's not like it was emergency surgery. You'll be fine, kids, heal fast. Besides, I needed this trip. Do you know how depressing it is being unemployed? I could barely process what I was hearing. I'll pay you back eventually, she added. Like my son's future was something that could wait until she was ready. I hung up before I lost it completely. The family, of course, is divided. Some are trying to smooth things over. She didn't mean to hurt you, they say. She's just going through a hard time. No, she knew exactly what she was doing. The bank says they'll investigate, but it could take time. Meanwhile, I have to cancel Noah's surgery. How do I explain to a 7-year-old that his own cousin stole his chance to walk properly? And Laura? She's still posting? Her latest update? A photo of a charity donation box at Notre Dame, feeling blessed, giving back, hashtag grateful. I muted her, but Emily keeps sending me screenshots. Document everything, she says. And she's right. Every post, every story, it's all evidence. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to the police. I don't care what the family thinks. I don't care about keeping the peace. Laura stole my son's future. Now, she's going to pay for it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Laura, sipping champagne at the airport, laughing, carefree while I was stuck figuring out how to tell my son his surgery was no longer happening. By morning, I had made up my mind. No more waiting. No more hoping she'd suddenly feel guilty and do the right thing. I gathered every screenshot, every bank statement, every message. Then, I drove straight to the police station. Filing the report was surprisingly straightforward. The officer listened, nodded, and took notes as I laid out everything. The bank transactions, Laura's access to my devices, the Instagram stories flaunting her trip. When I finished, he exhaled and leaned back in his chair. This is complicated, he said. Because she had access to your devices, it could be argued that you willingly transferred the money. She stole it, I said, my voice sharp. I never authorized those transfers. I understand, he said, and you have strong evidence. But financial fraud cases like this can take time, and the bank's investigation will be key. In the meantime, I suggest you pursue civil action as well. A lawsuit, another headache, more money I didn't have. But I wasn't letting this slide. Before I left, I asked one last question. What are the chances of getting my money back quickly? The officer's answer was blunt. Unless she voluntarily returns it? Slim. That was all I needed to hear. I walked out of the station, my fists clenched. Laura had stolen from me, from my son, and she was parading around Paris like nothing had happened. But she wasn't going to get away with it. I called my sister Emily as soon as I got in my car. I filed the report. Now, I need a lawyer. She didn't hesitate. I'll help. We'll make her pay for this. Later that day, Emily called me back, her voice a mix of frustration and disbelief. You won't believe this, she said. I've been talking to our relatives. Laura's been telling different stories to everyone. To Aunt Karen and Uncle Mark. She said you offered to help her with a fresh start. To our cousins, she's saying it was a loan you agreed to. And to her parents, she's making it sound like you were just being generous because she's going through a rough patch. I couldn't even be surprised. Of course, she was trying to spin it, trying to turn herself into the victim. Emily kept going. Her mom called me this morning. They want to keep the peace and offered to pay $2,000 in installments over 6 months. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. She stole over $100,000, and they think $2,000 makes it okay? I told them you're taking her to court, Emily said. They went silent. Good. Let them sit with that. That night, I sat down with Noah. I had been dreading this moment. I tried to soften it. Buddy, you know how we were counting down the days to your surgery? He nodded. Yeah. Only 24 left. His excitement twisted something in my chest. I swallowed hard. Something happened. We have to wait a little longer. His face fell. Why? I hesitated. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that someone he loved and trusted had stolen from him? Before I could figure out how to answer, he spoke again. Is it because cousin Laura needed the money more than me? I nearly broke right then. How do you tell a child that someone he looked up to chose designer shopping over his ability to run, that she cared more about Instagram clout than his future? I forced a smile, even though my throat burned. No, buddy, and we're going to fix it. I promise. He nodded, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. And that was the moment I knew. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my son to understand that people like Laura don't win. The next morning, I woke up to another message from Laura. Jake, you're seriously blowing this out of proportion. I already told you. I'll pay you back when I can. You're making me look bad to the family over something that isn't even urgent. I gritted my teeth. Then, as if to prove she had no shame, she posted another Instagram story. A rooftop bar, the Eiffel Tower glowing in the background. Her caption, living my best life. Sorry, not sorry. That was it. I was done being patient. Emily and I spent the rest of the day compiling everything, bank records, messages, social media posts. She even started tracking Laura's purchases from her Instagram stories, making a spreadsheet of every designer brand she flaunted. You know, Emily said, staring at the list, if she can afford all this, she can afford to pay you back. That gave me an idea. A brutal, beautiful idea. That night, I sent Laura one last message. If you don't send me the money back in full within 48 hours, I'm taking this public. She left me on read, so I followed through. Emily and I sent everything, her confession messages, her shopping spree posts, the evidence of stolen funds to every single family member. We didn't say a word. We just let Laura's own words condemn her, and it worked. Our relatives started calling her out. Her parents went from trying to smooth things over to furious. The aunts and uncles she had lied to, they were demanding explanations. Laura tried to control the damage. First, she went silent. Then she posted a vague, sometimes family is toxic story, hoping for sympathy. But people weren't buying it anymore. Then, the final blow landed. Emily found out Laura had recently applied for a financial coordinator position at a company in our city. The job posting emphasized high ethical standards and responsibility with handling money. So, I did what had to be done. I sent the company an email. No exaggerations, no anger. Just the facts. This is the person you're about to trust with your finances. I attached screenshots of Laura bragging about stealing money. Within hours, Laura's offer was revoked, and when she found out, she lost it. The cons that night, she showed up at my door, banging like a lunatic. "You ruined my life! I was going to use that job to pay you back." Noah was in the other room, probably terrified. I kept my voice calm. "You ruined your own life, Laura." She kept yelling. I kept standing there, unmoved. Eventually, I shut the door in her face and called the police. They came, recognized her from my fraud report, and told her to leave. As she walked away, she muttered under her breath, "You're gonna regret this." "No, Laura, you are. And this is just the beginning." Laura didn't go quietly. After she lost the job, she spiraled. She stopped trying to ignore me and went straight to blaming me for everything. My messages were flooded with insults, accusations, and half-baked apologies. "You ruined my future. This was my chance to start over, and you took it from me. I was going to pay you back, but now you made that impossible." The audacity was almost laughable. Almost. Because while she was throwing tantrums, I was still staring at my son's canceled surgery date, still listening to him ask, in his small, hopeful voice, if we could put the calendar back up again. Laura wanted to play the victim, fine, but she was about to find out that actions have consequences. After I exposed everything, the family's reaction split into two camps. Half of them were horrified, calling Laura out and cutting ties. The other half predictably wanted to smooth things over. "She's just lost right now. She didn't mean to hurt anyone. Maybe we can all sit down and talk this out." Talk? What was there to talk about? My son still couldn't walk properly. Laura was still parading around, acting like she was the victim. But not everyone was in denial. Her parents finally saw her for what she was. After years of covering for her, enabling her, and making excuses, they finally hit their breaking point. They told her she had two choices: sell the designer bags, return the luxury items, and start repaying the money, or leave their house with nothing. Laura, being Laura, doubled down. She refused to sell anything, claimed it was all sentimental, and that I had no right to take away what she worked for. Worked for? She had never worked for anything. So her parents did what they should have done years ago. They locked her out of her bank accounts, took back their emergency credit card, canceled the phone plan they had been paying for. Laura, for the first time in her life, had nothing. And instead of taking responsibility, she went nuclear. The Instagram stories started that night, post after post about how toxic family could be, how she was being abandoned and betrayed by people who were supposed to love her. She even had the nerve to throw in some fake deep quote, something about how sometimes you have to cut off people who don't support your growth. Growth? She stole from a disabled child and went on a shopping spree. The comments were brutal. People weren't buying it anymore. "Weren't you just flexing designer bags last week? Girl, weren't you bragging about using his money? Sit down. You did this to yourself." She started deleting the comments, but they kept coming. No one was falling for her act anymore. And then, she made the worst mistake possible. She tried to come after me publicly. She posted a long, rambling story about how I had overreacted and turned the family against her. That I was just bitter because I wasn't successful enough to afford a trip like hers. And then, the final line, "He's not even that broke. He could just start a GoFundMe or something." That was it. That was the moment she sealed her own fate. Because up until that point, I had been letting things unfold naturally, letting her destroy herself, one bad decision at a time. But now I was going to finish it. It started with a single post. Emily and I gathered every piece of evidence, the transactions, the messages, the vacation posts, her own words admitting to stealing. We put it all together in one massive, undeniable, irrefutable thread, and we posted it. Not in some private family group, not in some vague, let's keep this between us way, public, for everyone to see. And it blew up. Within hours, people were sharing it, commenting, dragging her. The story spread like wildfire. Even people who didn't know us were chiming in, outraged on my behalf. Somehow, the local news caught wind of it. A journalist reached out, asking if I wanted to speak about financial fraud and the importance of protecting online banking information. I said yes. And just like that, Laura's dirty little secret wasn't just a family scandal anymore. It was public record. Laura lost it. She started calling everyone, trying to do damage control. First, she begged. Then, she threatened. Then, she cried about how I was ruining her life. But the thing was, She had done that to herself. And now, there was nowhere left to run. Her friends started cutting her off. People she had been partying with in Paris, they stopped answering her messages. Her little influencer dreams, dead in the water. No brand wanted to be associated with someone who stole from her own family. Her parents, who had been clinging to some last shred of hope that she'd change, finally gave up. They sold her luxury items themselves, every bag, every piece of jewelry, every overpriced souvenir she brought back from Paris. The money went straight into an account for Noah's surgery. And Laura? She had no home, no money, and no more sympathy. 2 weeks later, I got the call. Thanks to the money her parents recovered, plus some financial assistance from an organization that had seen my story, Noah was officially back on the surgery schedule. The look on his face when I told him, worth every second of this nightmare. Really? He whispered, like he didn't believe it. Really, buddy? He beamed. I'm gonna run so fast, Dad. So fast no one will ever catch me. And just like that, everything felt lighter. Laura didn't show up to the court hearing. Didn't even try to fight it. The judge ruled in my favor immediately. Full financial restitution. A legally binding agreement. Not that it mattered, she had nothing left to take. Last I heard, she was crashing on some old friend's couch, trying to figure out what to do next. She texted me once, "Hope you're happy. You ruined my life." I didn't reply, because I was happy. Not because her life was ruined, but because Noah's wasn't. And if Laura had to lose everything for my son to get his future back, that was a price I was more than willing to let her pay. Laura disappeared for a while after the court ruling. No more social media posts, no more texts, no more tantrums. It was like she had finally realized she couldn't talk her way out of this one. But I knew better than to think she had truly changed. People like Laura don't reflect. They don't grow. They just wait for the next opportunity to play the victim. I didn't waste time wondering what she was up to. My focus was on Noah. The hospital gave us a new date for his surgery sooner than expected, thanks to a last-minute cancellation. The moment I got the call, I picked him up and spun him around. "Guess what, buddy?" I grinned. "Your big day just got moved up." His eyes widened. "You mean my legs are gonna get fixed sooner?" I nodded, barely holding back tears. "That's right." He threw his arms around my neck. "Best news ever." And just like that, everything Laura had taken was being restored. It took less than a month for Laura to reappear. Not in person, she wouldn't dare, but through texts. At first, it was the usual nonsense. "We need to talk. You took things too far. I was going to fix everything, but you ruined my life." I ignored her. Then she switched tactics. "I'm sorry, okay? I made a mistake, but I'm in a really bad place right now. Can we please just move on?" Move on? Like she had just borrowed a few bucks and forgotten to pay me back? She followed up with a long-winded message about how she was struggling to find work because certain people had made it impossible for her, that she was couch surfing, that she had lost everything. I stared at my phone, unmoved. Laura wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she got caught. The best part, she had the nerve to end her message with, "You know, family is supposed to help each other." I almost laughed. Family? Now she wanted to talk about family? I put my phone down without responding. I wasn't playing her game anymore. A week later, it was time. The morning of the surgery, Noah was nervous but excited. As we walked into the hospital, he held my hand tighter than usual. "Dad?" he asked. "Yeah, buddy. After I get better, can we race?" I smiled. "You bet we can." The doctors assured me everything would go smoothly, but I still felt like I couldn't breathe as I watched them wheel him away. 3 hours later, the surgeon came out. "It was a success," she said. "He's going to be just fine." I don't remember much after that. Just a rush of relief so strong I thought my knees might give out. When Noah finally woke up, groggy but smiling, I knew this was the moment I had been fighting for. Laura had taken a lot from us, but she hadn't won. I should have known Laura wasn't done trying. The night after Noah's surgery, while I sat by his hospital bed, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered, thinking it might be a nurse or a doctor. Instead, I heard Laura's voice. "Jake, please just hear me out." I almost hung up right then, but something in her tone was different. Not angry, not smug, just defeated. She wasn't calling to argue. She was calling because she had nowhere else to turn. "I have nothing left," she admitted. "No one will help me. Her voice broke. "I don't know what to do." I didn't say anything, because what was there to say? She had burned every bridge, played every manipulation card, and backed herself into a corner. Now she wanted me to fix it. She sniffled. "Please, Jake. I just need a little help. Just enough to get back on my feet." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let my answer be clear. No. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "No? That's it? That's it." She let out a bitter laugh. "So you're just gonna let me suffer?" I didn't even flinch. "Laura, you did this. You made these choices. Now you get to live with them." She started to argue, but I ended the call. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Laura must have realized I wasn't going to cave, because a few days later, she tried one last desperate move. She made another social media post, a long, rambling caption about how she was a victim of cancel culture and how certain people had destroyed her life over a simple mistake. She framed herself as someone who had just made a bad decision but was being cruelly punished for it. The comments? Brutal. "No, girl. You stole from a disabled child. That's not a mistake. Maybe don't brag about your crimes next time. Actions have consequences. You learned that the hard way." Her own former friends dragged her. The post was deleted within an hour. And just like that, Laura was gone. 3 weeks after the surgery, we went back for Noah's first physical therapy session. He was nervous. So was I. The therapist helped him stand. He wobbled at first, gripping the bars tightly. Then, step by step, he moved forward. I felt a lump in my throat as I watched him. Then he turned to me, grinning. "Dad, look, I'm doing it." Tears burned my eyes. "I see you, buddy. You're doing amazing." When he finished his session, he reached for my hand. "Race you back to the car," he said, his voice full of hope. I laughed. "You're on. We didn't run that day. Not yet, but soon." And that was the real victory. Not revenge. Not seeing Laura crash and burn. It was this, my son, standing tall, ready to take on the world. And as we walked out of that building, I knew Laura could never take this from us. Noah's recovery became my entire focus. Every day he grew stronger, taking steps that once seemed impossible. Every time he walked a little farther, stood a little taller, I felt a weight lifting off my chest. This was what I had fought for. The court case, the humiliation, the months of stress, it had all been worth it to see him laughing, running, living the way he was always meant to. Laura, on the other hand, had vanished. Her social media accounts were gone, wiped clean like she had never existed. She wasn't at her parents' house anymore. No one knew where she had gone, and to be honest, I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, life was finally moving forward. A month after Noah's surgery, Emily showed up at my house. "You're not going to believe this," she said, dropping into the chair across from me. I raised an eyebrow. That sentence hasn't led to good news in a while. She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. "It's about Laura." I sighed. "Do I even want to know?" "Probably not. But you should." I glanced at the screen. It was a screenshot of a post from a local Facebook group, the kind people used for job listings and housing, looking for a place to stay. Just went through a really hard time. Family turned on me. I just need a fresh start. No name, no profile picture. But I knew. Laura. Emily nodded. "She's homeless, Jake." The first stared at the screen, waiting for some kind of emotion to hit me. Pity. Satisfaction. Something. But all I felt was nothing. "She did this to herself," I said finally. "She had chances. More than she deserved. She burned them all." Emily didn't argue. She just sighed. "I figured you should know." I slid her phone back. "Thanks, but I'm done worrying about her." And I meant it. 2 weeks later, Noah hit a milestone that made everything worth it. It was a sunny afternoon. We were at the park, watching other kids play soccer. Noah stood beside me, gripping his crutches. "Dad?" he said. "Yeah, buddy." He looked up at me, eyes shining. "Can I try?" I smiled. "Of course." We walked over to where the other kids were playing. They stopped when they saw us, their faces a mix of curiosity and encouragement. Noah grinned. "I'm ready." One of the kids, a boy a little older than him, stepped forward. "Want a race?" Noah glanced at me. I nodded. He handed me his crutches. And then, for the first time in his life, he ran. It wasn't perfect. His steps were wobbly, his pace uneven, but none of that mattered. He ran. I could barely see through the tears in my eyes. He crossed the imaginary finish line, panting but beaming. I scooped him up and spun him around. "You did it, champ." He laughed. "Told you I would." And just like that, The last piece of my heart that had been weighed down by this whole ordeal finally let go. Noah had won, and that meant I had won. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. But Laura wasn't done. A few nights later, I got a text. "Unknown number, can we talk, please?" I stared at the screen for a long time before responding. Me, who is this? I knew. She knew. I knew. But I wanted her to say it. "Unknown number. It's me, Laura." I sighed. I should have blocked her right then and there. But curiosity got the better of me. "Me, what do you want?" "Laura, I messed up. I know that. But I have no one left. I don't know what to do. I need help." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Here we were again. Laura, playing the same game, hoping that if she sounded pitiful enough, I'd cave. But I wasn't the same person I was months ago. I had learned. "Me, Laura, I gave you chances. You threw them away. Laura, I know. I was stupid. I was selfish. But I can't undo it. All I can do is ask for another chance." I thought about Noah, about the nights I had stayed up worrying, about the surgery that almost didn't happen, and I realized I didn't hate Laura. The first didn't even wish her harm, but I had nothing left for her. "Me, I hope you figure things out, but I'm done. Don't contact me again." I hit send. Then, before she could reply, I blocked her number. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Months passed. Noah got stronger every day. He played soccer. He ran races. He lived the life he was always meant to. As for Laura, I never heard from her again. Some distant cousin mentioned seeing her once, working a retail job under a different name. Maybe she was finally learning how to live without taking from others. Maybe not. But that wasn't my problem anymore. Because my life, the one she tried to destroy, was better than ever. One night, as I tucked Noah into bed, he looked up at me and smiled. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy. Can we go to the park tomorrow? I want to race again." I grinned. "Absolutely. Because that's what mattered now. Not revenge. Not Laura. Not the past. Just this. Noah. His future. And the fact that nothing could ever take that away from us again." Life moved on, and for the first time in years, it felt like I could breathe again. The weight that had been pressing down on me, Laura, the stolen money, the stress of Noah's surgery was gone. And Noah? He was thriving. Every morning, I watched him run down the sidewalk to the bus stop, backpack bouncing, legs moving freely. No hesitation, no pain, no limp. That alone made everything worth it. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch sipping coffee, Emily showed up. She had a smirk on her face, which usually meant she had something to say that I wasn't going to like. "You're not going to believe what I just found out," she said, dropping into the chair beside me. I raised an eyebrow. "If this has anything to do with Laura, I don't care." "Oh, you'll care." She pulled out her phone and showed me a post from a random local community page. It was an apartment listing. Small, cheap, nothing fancy. But what caught my attention was the name, Laura. She had finally gotten her own place. "She's working," Emily said. "Some minimum wage job, but still." No more handouts, no more excuses. I stared at the post for a long moment. Then, without saying a word, I handed the phone back. Emily sighed. "You really don't care, do you?" "Nope." She laughed. "Good. You shouldn't." And I didn't. Laura's life wasn't my concern anymore. Whether she had changed or was just biding her time until the next scam, it didn't matter. I had my own life to focus on. Months passed, and things only got better. Noah joined a soccer team. Watching him run across the field, grinning from ear to ear, made everything we had been through feel like a distant memory. One evening, after practice, he came running up to me, breathless and excited. "Dad, Coach says I'm getting faster." I ruffled his hair. "Told you all that hard work would pay off." He beamed. "Can we have a race when we get home?" I pretended to think about it. I don't know. I might be too fast for you now." He laughed. "Yeah, right. You're gonna lose." And honestly, I hoped I would. One day, out of curiosity, I checked the court records. Laura had made her first repayment. It wasn't much, barely a dent in what she owed, but it was something. Maybe she was finally taking responsibility. Or maybe she just didn't want to risk legal trouble. Either way, it didn't change my life. I had already moved on. I never expected to see her again. But one evening, as I was leaving the grocery store, I spotted her. She was standing outside, looking at her phone, a bag of cheap groceries at her feet. She looked different. Not the confident, smug person she had once been. For a brief second, our eyes met. I saw recognition flicker in hers, a mix of shame, resentment, and something else, something I couldn't quite place. But she didn't say anything, and neither did I. I walked past her without a word, without a second glance, because Laura was my past, and I was only looking forward. On Noah's birthday, we spent the afternoon at the park. He had invited his friends, and they played soccer until the sun started to set. As we packed up, he tugged on my sleeve. "Race me to the car?" he asked, grinning. I smiled. "You really think you can beat me now?" He nodded. "Yeah, I know I can." We lined up side by side. 1, 2, 3, go. He took off like a rocket, legs moving strong and steady, laughter filling the air. And for the first time, I let him win. Because that was the real victory. Not revenge, not payback, not making Laura suffer. This, my son, running, free, happy, unstoppable. And as I watched him celebrate his victory, I knew this was the ending we deserved. The past was over. The future was ours. And we were never looking back. Story 2. My dad yelled in front of the entire family. "You are a shame to your family." Everyone chuckled. Calmly, I got up and walked away. They were in a panic a year later. My inbox was overflowing with 30 unseen emails pleading for assistance. I never imagined that I would write this, yet here I am. I need to get it off my chest since it has been bothering me for days. This occurred during what should have been a typical family get-together last weekend. A little backstory. My name is Miguel, and I am 27 years old. Out of 3 children, I am the eldest. Warren, my father, has never been easy. He owns and operates a 2-generation family-run construction supplies business in the area. Except for myself, every member of our family works there. 3 years ago, I decided to take a new route and launched my own digital marketing company. My mother's birthday was last Sunday. My parents' house was where everyone congregated. Uncles, aunts, cousins, the whole family. I brought Paisley, my girlfriend, who was having her first encounter with the extended family. From the minute we entered, the atmosphere was strained. My dad hardly gave us a look. He just grunted dismissively, something he has mastered over the years. Dinner was when the drama began. Gianna, my 24-year-old sister, was discussing how the store has been having trouble recently due to the new Home Depot that opened close by. As she said, Dad's face became crimson, clearly agitated. After that, my Aunt Bernice had to speak out. Well, I saw it coming if Miguel had entered the family company like he was meant to. The dishes shook when Dad slammed his fork down. "Do you want to know why we're having trouble? Due to this one." He gestured toward me. "My kid, who is ungrateful, left his family when we were working hard at the store. He is experimenting with his small computer games. Dad, I didn't lose my cool. I've made several offers to assist in updating the store's marketing." "You turned down marketing?" As if it were poison marketing, he spit the word out. "Computer displays don't conceal real guys. Hands are how real guys work." The table became silent. Under the table, Paisley gripped my hand. Her stress was palpable to me. Last year, my company generated 6 figures. Silently, I said, "I could assist." He totally lost it at that point. "You're a disgrace to your family," he cried, his cheeks flushed with anger. I'll never forget what occurred after that. People chuckled. Some cousins and my uncles. In fact, they chuckled, as if my life decisions were a farce. Beside me, Paisley was trembling with rage, like she often did when Dad walks gone. My mother merely gazed at her plate. Despite her frightened expression, Gianna remained silent. No one ever resists. Slowly, I got out of my chair, scratching the floor. As I glanced around the table, the laughing subsided, establishing eye contact with everyone who had chuckled. "I'm finished," I said. "I'm beyond being the punching bag for the family. I'm tired of seeing you destroy that shop because you're too arrogant to change. I've finished everything." Dad scoffed, taking off again. "Proceed. Don't back down when your little online business fails." Paisley and I headed to the door after I assisted her up. Dad was complaining about youngsters these days and how they don't respect tradition, and I could hear it. Every week, my mom would cry out, "Please, Miguel." I didn't turn around in the automobile, though. Paisley was enraged. "Those folks are poisonous. You're more successful than all of them together, so How dare they make fun of you? I started the engine with an odd sense of tranquility. What's humorous to you? I've been receiving communications from his suppliers, but Dad is unaware of this. He has not pleased them. A few of them are searching the region for fresh collaborations. How will you respond? Paisley inquired. In the rearview mirror, I saw my father's house becoming smaller as I backed out of the driveway. Not yet. However, they will offer assistance when people come to ask for it. Everyone who laughed today will be remembered. Gianna's and my mother's texts began to ring through my phone. However, I switched it off. I've had enough of being the obedient son. They wish for me to be viewed as a shame. All right? See how they react as their cherished family company begins to fail. And the son they made fun of is the only one who could assist them. It's not over yet. By no means. Edit. We appreciate all of the help and recognition in responding to some frequently asked questions. Although I do have screenshots of everything, I will not be answering any of their messages at this time. You all guessed it. This narrative is far more complex than the blow-up of today. I'll provide an update as events unfold. For individuals inquiring about the store's internet presence, edit number 2. Their Facebook page hasn't been updated since 2019, and they don't even have a website. Indeed, that is just as awful as it seems. Update. It's remarkable how individuals may reveal their actual selves after 6 months of stillness. Other than my sister Gianna, who periodically sent me memes on Instagram, I hadn't heard from other family members. Then all of a sudden, my phone exploded. Miguel, my mother, texted me first. Your father has been inquiring about you, honey. Yes, exactly. It felt more like their well-crafted facade was beginning to crumble. My father was busy yelling at me about being a disgrace, but he was unaware that I had been listening. I understood exactly how he operated his company that supplied car components, taking shortcuts, underpaying employees, and barely making ends meet while posing as our neighborhood's big shot. Dude, your old man's losing it. A buddy who was still employed at a nearby store emailed me. He yelled at Pedro when he arrived because of the delayed supplies. Pedro, who operated the most dependable delivery business in the neighborhood, had been a family friend for 15 years. It was horrible if Warren was shouting at him. The initial barrage of mails was ignored by me. The voicemails followed. Miguel, this is your father. Call me back ASAP. Delete. Your father's not well. Please call us. Delete. This is all your fault. Ever since you went. Delete. But the real kicker came when Gianna called me at 2 a.m. crying. Dad's losing contracts left and right, she cried. He dismissed 3 individuals today, including Pedro. He's drinking again, Miguel. Mom, scared. I sat there in my dark apartment, looking at my phone screen. What does he want me to do about it? He needs help with the business. He keeps repeating, if you only remained. I shut her off. No. He made his choice when he decided to humiliate me in front of everyone. The next day, I decided to do some digging. Turned out Warren's largest supplier was bailing out owing to late payments. 3 others were contemplating following suit. The business he'd bragged about for decades, the one he'd attempted to compel me to take over, was disintegrating. I got a LinkedIn message from Pedro later that week. He wanted to meet for coffee. Against my better judgment, I consented. The sight of Pedro's devastated look stung more than intended. He lost weight, had black bags beneath his eyes. Your father, he started, then shook his head. I've never seen him like this. He's burning bridges quicker than you can count them. Called me a thief in front of everyone. Miguel, me who carried his delivery even when he was late paying. I sipped my coffee gently. Why are you telling me this? Because you're smarter than him. Always have been. You noticed the writing on the wall years ago, didn't you? That's why you refused to join. He wasn't wrong. I'd seen the obsolete systems, the increasing debt, the frantic attempts to keep up appearances. Warren was still utilizing paper ledgers, while competitors had sophisticated inventory management systems. The texts kept arriving. Mom shared images of my childhood bedroom remaining undisturbed. Cousins attempted guilt-tripping me on Facebook and left long, emotional voicemails about family responsibility. Then Warren himself came up at my apartment complex one evening. I observed from my window as he paced outside, probably rehearsed speaking in hand. I didn't buzz him in. After an hour, he dropped a crumpled envelope in my mailbox. Inside came a handwritten letter full of the same old manipulative methods. Your mother's heartbroken. This business was meant for you. Everything I did was for this family. Not a single genuine apology. I sat down at my computer that night and started making calls. Turns out several of Warren's former employees were looking for work. Pedro's delivery expertise was going to waste. And those suppliers my father was losing. They were interested in new partnerships. Warren had always said I was too soft for business, too analytical, not enough gut instinct like him. Well, time to show him just how wrong he was. I knew the next few months would be interesting. Warren had no idea what was coming. And this time, I wouldn't be the one screaming update. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for all the supportive comments to those asking. Yes, this is all happening in real time. And yes, I'll keep you updated. Things are about to get very interesting. Update 2. You know what's surreal? Sitting in your own office, sipping coffee and watching your father's business literally fall apart across the street. Not in some metaphorical way. I mean, actually seeing him pacing through his windows, screaming into his phone while his employees pack up their desks. Let me catch you up real quick. 6 months ago, I walked out on my family after my dad, Warren, publicly humiliated me at a family gathering. Since then, I've been building my own business. And it turns out cutting toxic people out of your life really does wonders for your focus and productivity. I hadn't planned on setting up shop directly across from Warren's place, but when the lease came up at a ridiculously good price, I'd have been stupid to pass it up just because my old man's failing business was nearby. The look on his face the day my sign went up, priceless. He actually stormed across the street, burst into my office without an appointment, and started screaming about how I was deliberately trying to ruin him. "You ungrateful little shit," he yelled, his face turning that familiar shade of purple. "You think you can just waltz in here?" And I cut him off. "Security will be here in about 30s. Warren, I suggest you leave before they escort you out." The way his jaw dropped when I called him Warren instead of Dad, that moment alone was worth the price of the lease. Here's the thing about karma. Sometimes it needs a little nudge. I didn't do anything illegal or underhanded. I just started offering better service, better prices, and better working conditions than Warren ever did. One by one, his best employees started sending their resumes my way. I hired the good one, including his office manager of 15 years, Bernice, who had all sorts of interesting stories about his business practices. My sister Gianna still worked for him at the time. She called me one night, practically in tears. "Miguel, Dad's losing it. He threw a stapler at Pedro's head today because the quarterly numbers were down. Tell Pedro to email me his resume." I replied, "And you should probably update yours too." 2 weeks later, they both started working for me. Warren's reaction? He showed up at my apartment at 3 a.m., drunk off his ass, alternating between threatening to sue me and begging me to come back to the family business. I recorded the whole thing on my phone, just in case the real turning point came when I landed the Anderson contract. Warren's biggest client for the past decade. I didn't poach them. They came to me after Warren screwed up their last 3 orders. When he found out, he had another meltdown, this time in the middle of downtown, screaming about how I was destroying the family legacy. Several people recorded it. The videos made the rounds on our local Facebook group. Watching him unravel was fascinating. Every time he made a scene, it just drove more business my way. People started sharing stories about how he'd treated them over the years. Turns out I wasn't the only one he'd publicly humiliated. Last week, I heard through the grapevine that he's 3 months behind on rent. His remaining employees are jumping ship left and right. Josephine, his longtime receptionist, literally walked out in the middle of the day after he threw another tantrum. Yesterday, Gianna brought me some interesting news. Dad's trying to get a loan to keep the business afloat, she said during our lunch break, but no bank will touch him after those bounce checks from last month. I leaned back in my chair and looked out my window at Warren's office. He was there, head in his hands, looking every bit the defeated man he'd become. Part of me felt a twinge of not exactly sympathy, but something. Then I remembered how he'd treated me, Mom, and everyone else for years. "You know what's funny, Gianna?" I said, turning back to her. "He always said I'd never amount to anything, that I was a family disgrace. Now look where we are." She nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Karma's a bitch. I'm not done yet." Word is that Warren's landlord is looking to sell the building. I've already made some calls. Wouldn't it be something if his new landlord turned out to be his disgrace of a son? I'll keep you posted on how that plays out. For now, I've got a meeting with a real estate agent to prepare for final update. It's been exactly 1 year since I cut contact with my family. Last week, my inbox was flooded with desperate messages from my father's pride, finally shattered when his beloved business started crumbling. Turns out running a small construction supply store isn't so easy when your suppliers won't work with you anymore. Quick recap. Last year, my father, Warren, humiliated me at our family Christmas dinner, calling me a family disgrace in front of everyone because I quit working for him to start my own business. I walked out and never looked back. Since then, I've been methodically working on my revenge. I didn't respond to any of their messages at first. Let them stew. Each day, more desperate texts and voicemails piled up. My sister Gianna was the only one I kept minimal contact with. She'd been secretly feeding me information about the family's situation. Miguel, Dad's losing it. She texted me last Tuesday. He's been drinking heavily. The store might not make it through the month. Good. My idea was functioning well. Over the past year, I'd built relationships with all of Warren's major suppliers. Nothing unlawful, just good old-fashioned business network. One by one, they started declining to work with him, claiming better offers elsewhere. I made sure to price my new supply business just low enough to steal his regular customers, but not so low. It seemed suspicious. The breaking point occurred when I acquired the building where his store functioned. The prior landlord was glad to sell. I offered 15% above market value. Warren's lease was coming up for renewal next month. Yesterday, I finally agreed to meet them at our old family diner. Warren, my mom, Bernice, and my uncle Pedro were already there when I stepped in. Warren looked dreadful, unshaven, heavy bags under his eyes. "Good son," he started, voice breaking. I shut him off. "I'm not your son anymore. You made that quite plain last Christmas. I'm your landlord and your rival now." Bernie started weeping. Pedro sought to play peacemaker. "Please, Miguel. We can figure this out as a family." I pulled out a folder and dropped it on the table. "These are my terms. Non-negotiable." Inside was a new lease agreement. Triple the existing rent starting next month. Also included was a contract to sell me his remaining stuff at 40% of value. Warren's cheeks became crimson. "This is extortion. You can't do this to your own father." I leaned forward, speaking gently but strongly. "Watch me. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I start entertaining other renters for the space. I understand Planet Fitness is trying to expand in this region." You cruel little Warren attempted to rise, but Pedro held him back. "Remember how you laughed when you branded me a disgrace?" I continued. "Recall how everyone joined in." "Well, who's the shame now?" Bernice was weeping harder. "Please, Miguel. This business is your father's life, and my life meant nothing to him. Funny how karma works." I rose up to go. Warren grabbed my arm. "I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear?" "I was mistaken." I jerked my arm away. Too late. 48 hours. Clock's ticking. As I went out, I heard Bernice weeping and Warren yelling. Music to my ears. This morning, I received the signed contracts via courier. Warren's signature was weak, but readable. I immediately phoned my lawyer to process everything. An hour ago, Gianna came to my workplace. She handed me an old photo of myself and Warren from my high school graduation, both smiling. "He truly did love you, you know," she said quietly. I took the photo and dropped it in my shredder without breaking eye contact. Love doesn't justify cruelty. He made his choice last Christmas. I created mine. She nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "Now I'm going to slowly demolish everything he spent his life establishing. Not because I dislike him, but because he has to learn that actions have repercussions." My phone buzzed. Another frantic note from Bernice urging me to reconsider. Her number was blocked by me. Some could call me harsh. Maybe I am. But I learned from the greatest. My father taught me that family meant nothing when pride and money are on the line. I'm merely putting his lessons into practice. The store's new sign goes up next week. To make things a bit more complicated, I'm considering sticking with the family name. Isn't that the purpose of family? This is my last update. I appreciate all of your help. Go through it. Being everything they claimed you couldn't be and then utilizing that to your advantage is sometimes the best kind of retaliation. Edit. For those who said yes, it was all perfectly lawful. It's incredible what may be achieved with perseverance and thoughtful preparation. And no, I'm not at all guilty. Second edit. Don't DM me for legal advice anymore. This has nothing to do with courts or legislation. This has to do with backbone and business. Third edit. Some family members have attempted to mediate because so many people are requesting yes. I have blocked everyone but Gianna. She is aware of the reasons for my actions, even if she's not entirely on board. Story 3. I was treated like a wallet by my wife's family. A true man takes care of things without complaining. As they insisted that I cover the cost of their vacation, her sister sneered. I grinned before cutting them off entirely. They were in a panic a week later. My inbox was overflowing with 30 unseen emails pleading for assistance. I never imagined that I would be blogging here, but I need to vent after the terrible family meal today. I was just considering my sister-in-law. My fury boils when I see Michaela's arrogant face. For some background, I am 35M and have been married for 6 years to Diana, 32F. We're doing all okay, comfortable, but by no means wealthy. I started off with simply a beat-up pickup and worked my tail off to create my modest construction firm. We reside in a modest home and Diana works as a teacher. The issue? Her family, in particular her 36-year-old elder sister Michaela, who has been treating me like her own ATM since the beginning. She first required a few $100s for minor problems and made pledges to repay the money. That didn't happen. I ignored it in order to maintain harmony. That's simply the way Michaela is, Diana would always remark, or family supports family. However, this evening was unique. We were all at the weekly family dinner hosted by Diana's parents. Diana, me, Michaela, and her silent husband, Carl, Lila, their youngest sister, and their mother, Violet. Michaela talked endlessly about this incredible trip package. She discovered a family vacation at a beach resort for 2 weeks, when she turned to face me with her phony grin and said, "So, Miles, when can you transfer the money the deposit's due next week?" I wasn't really listening. My drink almost suffocated me. How much money? Foolish for the trip. I got this fantastic bargain. Just $800 sand, $2,000 for each pair. You think that's nothing? You brag about how nicely your business is going all the time. The foolishness of this. I surveyed the table. Everyone was looking eagerly at me, as if this were the usual. Diana's dish immediately piqued her curiosity. This trip wasn't discussed with me. "I'm not paying for it," I responded firmly. The room's temperature plummeted by around 20 degrees. A strange mixture of astonishment and rage distorted Michaela's face. "You're not paying? What do you mean?" "The children have already been taught that they cannot turn back now." She looked across at Diana. "Advise your hubby to cease being challenging." At last, Diana spoke, although in a feeble voice. "Perhaps we ought to talk about this later." My mother-in-law, Violet, then added her voice. "You understand how much the family needs this vacation, Miles, my love." "Lately, everyone has been really anxious," I interrupted her. "No, I'm not covering everyone's trip expenses. That's crazy." With her chair scuffing the floor, Michaela got to her feet. "A true man takes care of things without complaining. Carl is always willing to aid family." "Who earns half as much as me, Carl?" Only gazed at his dish. I lost it at that point. I want to make things very clear. Your bank is not me. For the last 6 years, I have documented all emergency loans. Michaela, you owe me more than $22,000. Not even a dime was paid back. The room blew up. Michaela began to yell. "Why should I keep track? Family doesn't do that." Violet sobbed as she described how I was destroying the family. Lila was frantically updating the group chat on the crisis in the extended family. I took out my phone, launched the Notes app, and began reading aloud. $3,000 for Carl's medical emergency in March 2022. It's funny since he shared photos from Atlantic City that weekend, and $5,000 was needed for urgent home repairs in December 2022. But that month, you purchased a hot tub. Shall I go on? Those were not the same. Michaela let out a cry. "It is expected of you to assist your family." What sort of man maintains such a score? My chair slammed against the wall as I got up. "The kind that has finished being utilized. Do you wish to take a vacation? Cover the cost yourself. Actually, you have 90 days to begin repaying me, or I'll take it to court for small claims." All of my transfers are recorded. At last, Diana was able to speak up. "Please, Miles." However, I was finished. "We're heading out immediately." There was tension on the journey home. Before we arrived at our driveway, Diana was silent. She said, They're going to make this terrible. They've done so already. As I turned off the engine, I answered. However, I've had enough of their game. The family has been bombarding my phone with texts. It seems like I'm cold-hearted, nasty, and undermining familial ties. Michaela received around 40 supportive comments on her ambiguous Facebook status about phonies revealing their true selves. Diana is conflicted. She keeps repeating that's simply the way things are, even though she knows I'm correct. And perhaps we could be of some assistance. However, I'm no longer standing my ground. I've muted the family group chat and blacklisted Michaela's number. I'm going to call my accountant tomorrow to arrange all of the loan paperwork. Allow them to weep and yell. I've had enough of playing the family ATM. Am I being too severe? 6 years of this is enough, even if I feel like I should have handled it more tactfully. Edit. I appreciate all of the quotes you provided. When I have more to offer, I'll update. I have several calls to return right now, and I need to start recording everything. Becky tries to manipulate my source of income. Go for it. Update. I appreciate all of the comments on my last post. Since then, a lot has transpired, and to be honest, I'm still figuring everything out. A brief summary. My sister-in-law Michaela pitched a tantrum about how real men provide for her when I declined to pay for her family's vacation plans, which oddly only included her immediate family. Things have grown much worse. Diana came out yesterday morning, looking concerned, as I was enjoying coffee on our back patio and browsing through my phone. She displayed her screen to me. I was not included in the secret family group chat that Michaela had set up, and she was fabricating a story about how I was mistreating Diana financially by keeping all the money. In the endless images, Michaela portrayed in dramatic terms how Diana is unable to purchase coffee without requesting permission. Pure BS. We offer both shared and individual accounts. At first, I dismissed it with a joke, but Diana continued to browse. My wife's entire extended family had been persuaded by Michaela that I was this domineering monster. He sent a link to an article about the warning indicators of financial abuse. Comments like I always knew something was off about him, and you need to protect yourself, Diana, were common in the chat room. When Carl lost his job, Michaela brought up the fact that I had previously assisted her with her rent. That was the true stinger. She had to beg for days, according to her version, and I forced her to grovel before I could help her with reality. Without doubt, I sent the money within an hour of her. Something suddenly clicked. Over the years, there have been numerous emergency requests, bills, and all those emotional phone calls. Diana was enraged. She called Michaela right away, put her on the speaker, large. Michaela began yelling about my transformation. She was turned against her own family by Diana. Michaela actually said, "Oh, honey, you really believe you have control over that money?" When Diana brought up our separate accounts, he most likely keeps an eye on every penny. My mother-in-law, Violet, could be heard in the background at that point. We're just concerned about you, Diana. Do you recall his refusal to assist Michaela with her vacation? What sort of a man treats his family that way? I saw my wife's expression change. She hung up the phone in the middle of her tirade and sat there for a minute. Her banking app was then launched, and she took screenshots of her transactions. Coffee shops, sporadic Target runs, and internet shopping, all without my consent. In the family chat, she shared them. What did Michaela say? Clearly, he is forcing you to do this. Tonight we have a family meeting. No justifications. We went. My choice. I knew better than to ignore it, but Diana wanted to. Don't let anyone else dictate the story. Violet's home was the location of the meeting. I sensed the tension as soon as we entered. Carl refused to look at me. Lila, the youngest sister, was nervously picking out her nails. Violet had that look. You know the one. Like she was ready to play the concerned mother role. Michaela started in immediately. Finally ready to explain yourself, Miles. How you're treating my sister. I stayed calm. Pulled out my phone. Actually, yes. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about the $2,300 you borrowed for Carl's truck repair. I turned to Carl. Except there was no truck repair, was there, Carl? The room got quiet. Carl looked confused. What? Truck repair? That's when it all started unraveling. Turns out Michaela had been playing both sides, telling me they needed money for emergencies while telling Carl she'd wanted playing online slots or gotten bonuses at work. The vacation fund, she'd been telling everyone I'd already agreed to pay for it months ago. The screaming started again, Michaela calling me a liar. Violet trying to calm everyone down while simultaneously telling Diana, "This isn't how we raised you." Lila crying. Carl just sitting there looking shocked as more lies came to light. I stayed seated, calm, let them yell. Every accusation just proved my point. Diana stood by me literally and figuratively, adding up the emergency loans on her phone, $15,400 over 3 years, all while they lived above their means. Posted beach trips on Instagram, bought designer bags. Finally, when Michaela screamed, "You're dead to this family," I stood up, looked her right in the eyes. "You're right about one thing. I am dead to this family. And so is my wallet." We left. Diana hasn't stopped apologizing, but I keep telling her she's not responsible for her family's actions. She's blocked everyone except Lila, who sent a private message saying she had no idea about the loans and manipulation. The finest aspect? This morning, I got a text from Carl asking to talk man to man. Apparently, he's found some interesting credit card statements. I haven't responded yet, but I'm done playing nice. They wanted to paint me as the bad guy. All right, let's see how they handle it when I actually become one. Next moves are already planned. No more. Mr. Nice Guy update. Just got a string of panic texts from Michaela about how we're family. Can't we talk about this? Too late. Way too late. Told her sister-in-law tried to turn the family against me with lies about financial abuse. It backfired when her own lies about loans and money came to light. Now I'm done playing nice. Update 2. If you haven't read my previous posts, check my profile. Told her my in-laws, led by Sil Michaela, treated me like their personal ATM for years. When I refused to fund their luxury vacation, they tried turning my wife, Diana, against me. Now they're learning what happens when you push too far. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and holy shit, what a roller coaster. Remember how I mentioned I had a plan? Well, it's time to share what went down. First thing Monday morning, I sent emails to everyone who owed me money. Simple, professional. As discussed, this is a formal request for repayment of loans totaling amount. Please arrange payment within 30 days. Attached were screenshots of their texts begging for money, my transfers, and their promises to pay back. Yeah, I kept receipts. Always keep receipts. Michaela was first to call, screaming about how I was attacking family. I let her rant on speaker while Diana listened. How dare you demand money from us? We're a family. Carl just got that new gaming setup. We can't afford this right now. That's a $3,000 problem you created, I replied calmly. You borrowed that money for your emergency roof repair 6 months ago. Funny how you had money for Carl's toys, but not to repay us. She hung up. 10 minutes later, mother-in-law Violet called Diana crying about how I was tearing the family apart. Diana finally snapped. Mom, you're tearing this family apart by enabling the Kayla's entitled behavior. Then came the group chat explosion. Layla, the youngest sister, started posting old screenshots of Michaela bragging about her shopping sprees right after claiming she couldn't pay bills. Carl's gaming setup bought the same week. Michaela told us they couldn't afford their car payment. The emergency dental work money went to her Botox. Each receipt I'd gathered hit like a bomb. The family WhatsApp became a war zone. Years of resentment surfaced as her relatives realized how much Michaela had borrowed from everyone. Cousin Emma revealed Michaela had guilted her into paying for half their shared vacation rental, which Michaela then claimed full credit for gifting to their parents. Michaela showed up at our house unannounced, mascara running, screaming about how I was destroying her reputation. Diana calmly pointed to our Ring camera and said, "You're doing that yourself right now." Michaela tried to force her way in a bad move. I called the non-emergency police line while Diana recorded everything. The responding officer was polite but firm. Try this again. Get trespassed. The real karma. Michaela's employer follows her on Instagram. All those sick days she took, she posted herself shopping or at the spa every single time. Someone, not me, apparently sent screenshots to HR. She's on final warning now. Carl finally grew a spine after discovering Michaela maxed out their shared credit card on designer bags. He called me privately, voice shaking. Man, I should have listened when you warned me years ago. How do I protect myself? I gave him my financial advisor's number. He's staying with his brother now, figuring out next steps. Violet's still enabling Michaela, but the extended family's done. No more loans, no more guilt trips. Uncle Jim announced the next family reunion won't be at Michaela's house, which she volunteered everyone else to fund, but at his lake cabin instead. Those who can pitch in, great. Those who can't, just bring a dish to share. The finest aspect? Diana has never been more certain about us. Last night, she looked at me and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't see it sooner, but I'm so proud you stood up to them." We stood up to them. Then she showed me texts from her high school friends about how Michaela had borrowed money from them too, claiming Diana was in on it. She used my relationships to scam people. Never again. Michaela sent 30-plus emails ranging from rage to begging. The last one just said, "I know you're reading these. You've wrecked everything." Actually, she damaged everything herself. I just quit hiding the evidence. Some family members are pissed that I went nuclear, but others, they're thanking me for finally exposing the rot. Diana's relative even sent us a gift card with a letter for having the bravery. We didn't. The trip they asked I pay for canceled instead. Diana and I are taking her. Elderly aren't the only one who warned us about Michaela years ago on a weekend vacation. She's always wanted, but could never afford since she was too busy supporting family. Karma's not a bitch. She's simply incredibly brilliant at bookkeeping. No legal drama needed, no elaborate machinations, simply the consequences of their own choices. Finally, catching up. Sometimes the best retribution is simply standing back and letting them confront the world they created. Final update first. Thank you all for the incredible support. Your remarks helped me keep focused when things became tough. If you haven't read my earlier blogs, the short version is my in-laws lead by my sill. Michaela used me like their personal ATM for years, until I refused to support their luxurious vacation. By claiming that a true man gives without complaining, they attempted to turn my wife Diana against me. I cut them off entirely 2 months ago, and holy shit, the consequences have been both cruel and pleasurable. This is the update that you all requested. Do you recall Michaela's constant boasting on Instagram about their ideal life? That facade quickly fell apart. At 11 p.m. last week, Diana received a frantic phone from her. Their power had been turned off. As it turned out, they had been living paycheck to paycheck and relied on my loans to keep up their standard of living. They sought the vacation fund to make up for 3 months of overdue mortgage payments they needed. Last Sunday, over a family meal, the actual bomb went off. Diana demanded that we depart. Everyone vowed to apologize when they saw Violet at the supper. Yes, exactly. As soon as we entered, Michaela began her typical manipulation. "Please, Miles. We are related." In addition to Lila's upcoming wedding, Carl lost his overtime at work. I just took out my phone, opened my notes and app, and began reading aloud. All of the loans they had taken out from me throughout the previous 5 years. Dates, quantities. They have a total of $43,000 in excuses. The room fell quiet. After being silent for years, Carl finally lost his temper. At Michaela, not at me. "It was only $5,000, you claimed. Miles was being theatrical, you told me." He was trembling and red-faced. As it turned out, she had been concealing how much they really borrowed from him. Things became nasty at that point. Violet made an effort to be a peacekeeper. This is something that our family can resolve. I wasn't finished, though. I produced more receipts and screenshots of Michaela's text message to Diana, accusing me of being weak and claiming that, unlike Carl, I wasn't a true provider. I nearly felt sorry for his face when he read those. Nearly. The yelling began. Carl bounded out. Lila sobbed about the breakdown of her wedding arrangements. Violet attempted to guilt-trip Diana. "How can you allow him to do this to our family?" Diana's answer. Showing everyone how Michaela had taken out a $2,000 loan from her teacher's retirement fund last year and never paid it back. She launched her banking app. Michaela lost it at that point. She began yelling that I was abusive and dominating, and that I had poisoned Diana against her family. A huge error. In the dining room, Diana picked up her phone, launched Facebook, and began a live video. She said, "Tell everyone how abusive Miles is. Explain to them how he covered Mom's auto repairs, both Lila's college texts and your children's summer camp. Tell them how you labeled him weak behind his back while he put in extra effort to lend you money." Michaela sobbed as she ran upstairs. Violet trailed along, yelling that I had damaged her kid. Excellent. Allow them to experience what it's like to be surrounded and controlled. The fallout. Carl remains with his brother. When he eventually looked at their credit card accounts, he saw that Michaela had used all 3 of them. Lila's expensive wedding site had to be canceled. As it happens, Michaela had pledged to use the money she anticipated receiving from me to help cover the cost. She genuinely apologized to me directly and is now organizing a garden wedding in its place. The finest aspect? When Violet attempted to call Diana at work to guilt trip her once more, Diana finally snapped. Diana merely stated, "We're done until you all accept responsibility and repay what you owe." She banned their numbers after that. Now they're rushing. Poshmark is where Michaela sells her high-end purses. I've destroyed the family. Violet is telling everyone who will listen. This is what actually kills them, though. Lila's smaller wedding is something I'm assisting with. Not with cash. She did not request it. I'm putting her in touch with neighborhood sellers and letting her transport decorations in my vehicle. I am aware. She is the only one who has acknowledged her errors and is making an effort to improve. Diana praised me for my hard stance last night. She said that while I was too afraid to acknowledge it, I always knew they were taking advantage of us. You didn't just confront them. I learned how to do it from you as well. To everyone who advised me to keep my cool and keep a record of everything, I appreciate everyone who pointed out that I was being too severe. It is not retaliation to watch them suffer the repercussions of their deeds. It's the truth. Story 4. My mother-in-law and wife made fun of me. Like a dog to a bone, he clings to me. After the house is in my name, I'll dump him. I said nothing, but the court gave her nothing today. There were 26 missed calls on my phone. I need to get this off my chest, but I never imagined that I would be one of those men writing here. I'm still absorbing everything that happened yesterday. A little backstory. For 3 years, I, Vincent, 34M, have been married to Harper, 31F. Our goal has been to purchase our own home. Additionally, we have been receiving assistance with the down payment from her mother, Poppy, 55F. You know how it is, but I should have recognized the warning signs sooner. Love renders you foolish and blind. Everything began the previous weekend. I was up on our rental's roof repairing some shingles that had been broken during the last storm. I would rather do it myself than wait weeks for our landlord to do it because he is worthless. I had almost finished when Harper's vehicle pulled up. She and her mother were laughing together as they exited. Up there, they didn't see me. They went to sit just beneath my work on the back porch. I heard my name just as I was ready to shout. Harper's tone paused me for some reason. "Vincent, I'm ecstatic with the house," Harper said, her tone brimming with derision. "We'll establish a life there together," he keeps saying. He's like a hound to a bone when it comes to me, my God. That chuckle of my mother-in-law's could have made my blood boil. Men are quite basic. In fact, he thinks you're registering the house under both of your names. No, I persuaded him that, because of his bad credit, it ought to be in my name. He absolutely believed that narrative. I'll begin the following stage as soon as everything is finalized and signed. How long do you think it will take to get a divorce from him? It should not appear suspicious. 6 months. A year, perhaps. Long enough to prove that I owned the house. I'll then let him know that I've drifted apart. Or some nonsense. What hit him will never be known to him. I listened as my mother-in-law and wife planned my financial execution while I sat still. They discussed how Poppy had been investing in me and gaining my trust, and how they had been preparing this for months. How Harper had been keeping track of every small error I made while putting up her case. What a sucker he is. Harper laughed. Do you recall when you handed him the Rolex at Christmas and he started crying? I've never received anything so kind from someone before. She imitated my voice. It was only to demonstrate to the neighbors that we were on his side in the meantime, accumulating proof that we have been supporting his way of life. Poppy replied triumphantly, "You've learned well, sweetheart. During our divorce, your father attempted to seize everything, but I showed him. The time has come for you to safeguard your future." They continued for 20 more minutes, outlining their whole strategy, how contesting the divorce would give the impression that I was unstable, how they would take advantage of my extended work days. Every perspective is considered, and every detail is calculated. Silently, I completed the roof and descended the opposite side, drove to the home of Bradley. Thank heavens he's a lawyer since he's been my best buddy since high school. I played the phone tape I had made for him. He listened and muttered, "Holy crap, Vince, here it is. How will you respond?" I gave him my full attention. I will give them the impression that they have won. After that, I'm going to destroy their entire strategy. The days that followed have been bizarre. Harper is behaving like a regular person, loving, even. She gave me a farewell kiss this morning, declared her love for me, and then contacted her mother right away to joke that the home paperwork was almost finished. I am aware of this, as I had previously installed a recording app on her phone while she was asleep. Yes, it may not be exactly ethical, but ethics are a joke right now. They asked me to assist them buy the home. It's much beyond our means. My money for the down payment would be depleted if they were to press for a $750 OO mortgage. Harper said that her commissions would pay for everything, but I've seen her actual figures. She isn't earning nearly as much as she says. They believe I'm at work right now. In reality, I'm at the bank transferring my funds to new accounts that they are unable to access. Bradley suggested a divorce lawyer as the next step. Poppy and Harper believe they are puppeteers, yanking my strings. It's time to demonstrate to them what occurs when the puppet breaks free. I have other recordings and screenshots of their text exchanges. Regards, a shared iPad, and a thorough log of all their attempted financial manipulations. However, I haven't moved yet. Next week, the house documents should be available. They believe I'm going to give Harper all the paperwork. They're going to be surprised, boy. When things get going, I'll provide an update. I need all the advice I can get right now. Is it bad of me to comply? Shall I go up to them now? The need to blow this whole thing up in their faces is part of me. However, Bradley asserts that patience will ultimately provide more benefits. I'm done playing their puppet anyway. Update, I appreciate all of the comments on my previous post. It didn't explode up the way it did. Yes, I have been recording everything, for those who are curious. 2 weeks have passed when I overheard Mill Poppy and my wife Harper conspiring to defraud me of the house transaction. It has been difficult for me to avoid them every day, but I'm looking at the big picture here. They're hanging themselves more and more the more rope I give them. Yesterday was a pivotal day. Harper said that I was arranging our home office while she was at her open house when I discovered a stack of bank statements she had sloppily tucked into the bottom drawer. You know what? For months, she has been lying about her commissions. She was keeping the difference in a different account each time she informed me that a house had sold for less. The worst thing, Poppy was supposed to get some of the money directly. Bradley, one of my friends, is a lawyer. When I showed him the data, he almost choked on his coffee, because this plan has been in the works for longer than you may have imagined. As he placed the papers on his kitchen table, he spoke. These are credited to your meal plan. Every month, they are methodical, and they began as soon as you were promoted. Harper was ecstatic about my promotion 6 months prior, I recalled. I now see why. For their small fund, more money. The money? They believe I am ignorant. This is where things become fascinating, though. Zoe, my sister, she's an accountant, thank God, assisted me in tracking down those transactions. It turns out that Poppy has been paying for a beach property with that money. The documents state that Harper will own the beach house when the divorce is completed. They have a lot of confidence in their idea. They have already begun preparing for life after the divorce. The altercation took place this morning. Harper was preparing breakfast while maintaining her typical charming demeanor. We should review the house papers today, darling. Sliding me a plate of eggs, she murmured. Documents on transferring it into my name were prepared by Mom's attorney. Just short term, until you have better credit. I took a mouthful of bread while maintaining a neutral expression. Yes, honey, whatever you believe is most appropriate. She smiled, presumably believing that I was still her docile baby. Her phone then buzzed. Poppy texted, "Has he signed yet? I hope that fool doesn't ruin this." Harper's face went white when she realized I was staring at the message preview that appeared on her locked screen. I slowly got up, allowing my chair to scuff the floor. "Is there a problem? Harper, you appear to have seen a ghost." She scrambled to hide her phone, knocked over her coffee. "It's nothing. She's just worried about the house. You know how she gets." "Yeah, I know exactly how she gets," I said, pulling out my own phone. I played the recording from 2 weeks ago. Their conversation about using me until the house was in her name. Harper's face went from white to green. The screaming match that followed was epic. She called me. Every name in the book accused me of spying, threatened to call the police. I simply sat there recording everything on my phone, watching her dig herself deeper till she eventually ran out of steam. I slid Bradley's business card across the table. "My lawyer will be in touch," I said, grabbing my jacket. "Oh, and Harper. That seaside cottage you and Poppy are planned to share. Might want to examine those payments. Would be a pity if they stopped going through. Her scream followed me out the door. My phone's been blowing up ever since. 15 missed calls from Harper, 11 from Poppy. I haven't replied a single one. Instead, I drove to Bradley's office. We're filing the divorce papers tomorrow. Harper and Poppy believe they're trashing my life, but they don't aware I'm going to rip the foundation out from beneath their tiny empire. Thanks for letting me rant, Reddit. And to those inquiring, sure, I've got copies of everything, every transfer, every text, every recording where it's lawful. The house they intended to take from me. It's going to cost them a lot more than they intended. Update 2 first. Thank you all for the support and advice. Things have finally come to a head, and I wanted to explain what went down this week. It's still surreal typing this out. I've been playing it cool for weeks, appearing normal while getting everything in order. Harper had no idea I knew about her little plot with her mom last Sunday. Was Poppy's weekly family supper. The one where she likes showing off her cooking talents and telling everyone how much she helps us. Perfect time. I came there early to assist set up Harper's concept. She wanted me to move some furniture. Bradley, my lawyer friend, parked around the corner waiting for my signal. I helped arrange the dining room while Harper and Poppy were in the kitchen, catching pieces of their chat regarding the home closing next week. They were virtually chuckling over how easy everything was going. Mom, once it's in my name, we can start step 2, Harper remarked, not realizing I was just outside the kitchen. Vincent's like a puppy, always so ready to please. He'll never see it coming. That's when I sent Bradley the SMS. The doorbell rang just as we were sitting down to dine. Harper's reaction as she saw Bradley coming in with the manila package. I wish I had a photo. What's Bradley doing here? She asked, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Just delivering some documents, I responded, keeping my voice casual as I opened the packet. Harper, these are divorce papers. I'm also filing an injunction to block the house purchase. Poppy leaped up so rapidly she knocked over her wine glass. How dare you ambush us at my dinner? Harper, call the police. Proceed, Bradley said, pulling out his phone. I'm taping everything from here on out. That's when all hell broke loose. Harper started screaming about how I was ruining everything, how she'd wasted 3 years on me. Poppy was yelling about how much money she'd invested in. I just sat there calmly eating my potatoes while Bradley recorded everything. You ungrateful piece of trash, Poppy screamed, her face turning red. After everything we've done for you, I finally put down my fork. You mean after everything you've done to me? The hidden accounts, the secret meetings with realtors, the text messages about how you're going to dump the dead weight once the house is in Harper's name. Harper's face went white. How did you? I heard you both that day. I was fixing the roof. Really should check if someone's home before plotting to screw them over. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of their conversation about the house scheme. Got plenty more where that came from. Those recordings are illegal, Poppy shrieked, trying to grab my phone. Bradley stepped in. Actually, in this state, they're perfectly legal. And there's more. I laid out everything. The bank statements showed money being transferred about, the text conversations. I'd recovered the conversation with a real estate board member concerning Harper's ethical infraction with each piece of evidence. Harper appeared to shrink in her chair while Poppy became louder and more frantic. You can't prove anything, Harper finally snapped. It's your word against ours, essentially, I said, bringing out one last document. It's your words versus yours. Remember that notarized statement you prepared about how you were the lone purchaser of the house due of my lousy credit? Turns out my credit score is greater than yours. Been like, way for years. Want to explain it to the judge? Poppy surged across the table, sending plates smashing to the floor. I'll destroy you. I have connections. Mom, stop. Harper grabbed her arm. He's taping everything. I stood up, smoothing my jacket. Bradley, I guess we're done here. Harper, you may have your lawyer contact mine. However, you might want to find your own spot for it. I've already informed the housing complex about removing you from the lease. As we went out, Poppy was still shouting threats while Harper had slumped in her chair, mascara dripping down her cheeks. My phone started blowing up before we even reached the car. 26 missed calls in the first hour alone. The following several days have been mayhem. Harper's been begging me to rethink and threatening to destroy my life. Poppy's reportedly been phoning everyone we know, weaving some tale about how I'm attempting to take their money. Here's the problem, though. I've got everything documented. Every lie, every plot, every manipulation. The hearing is next week, Bradley said. With the evidence we have, it's pretty much open and shut. Harper's broker is already raising concerns about her license renewal, and Poppy's connections don't appear so impressive in the light of day. I'm staying with my sister Zoe, for now. My stuff is in storage, and I'm really sleeping better than I have in months. It's like a weight has been lifted. Sure, some people are believing their sob tale, but the ones who count know the truth to everyone who advised me to believe my instinct and acquire proof. Thank you to those who stated I was paranoid. Well, sometimes paranoia is simply strong observation abilities. I'll update after the hearing. Something tells me Harper and Poppy aren't done trying to spin things their way, but for once, I'm not scared. Amazing how confident you can be when you have the facts on your side. Told her served divorce papers at Mill's dinner party, exposed their strategy with substantial proof. Chaos ensued. Court date next week. The last update. Hey Reddit, it's been 3 weeks since my previous update, and holy crap, what a roller coaster. Grab your popcorn because Karma finally shown up and she's an incredible beast. Quick recap. Wife Harper and Mill Dog aimed to cheat me out of our house by placing it in Harper's name exclusively. I overheard them insulting me. Clings like a hound to a bone. Gathered proof and filed for divorce. Now for the beautiful, sweet finish. Remember how Harper constantly bragged about her real estate success? Well, turns out her greatest customer was actually her mom funneling deals to her through shell companies. I had Bradley, my legal friend, check more, and we found out Poppy had been fraudulently inflating Harper's commission statistics for years. The finest aspect? Poppy didn't only do this out of motherly affection. She was writing off these exaggerated commissions as company costs on her taxes. The divorce hearing occurred yesterday. Harper strolled in wearing her beautiful clothes, probably bought with my money, acting like she owned the place. That arrogant look evaporated fairly swiftly when Bradley started giving proof. You should have seen their expressions when he took out the tapes. Harper's voice plain as day. Once the house is in my name, we can push him out. He's too foolish to see it coming. Then, Poppy. Men like him are simple to persuade to soothe their ego, and they'll sign anything. Harper became white as a sheet. Poppy began to yell that the recordings were unlawful. They weren't. One-party consent governs our state. None of them were allowed by the judge. This is where things get even better, though. Harper worked at that upscale real estate agency. Do you recall? While we were in court, Bradley had emailed evidence of her commission fraud to their compliance department anonymously. Harper's phone continued to ring. She was being fired in real time, it turned out. The expression on her face when she looked over her texts. Priceless. Poppy snapped. Began yelling that I was attempting to ruin her daughter's life. How she would force me to pay. If she didn't stop talking, the judge threatened to hold her in contempt. Harper was weeping, mascara flowing down her cheeks, asking me to work things out. Yes, exactly. The judge's verdict was better than I could have hoped for. Not only did I get to keep my down payment for the house, but Harper had to pay me alimony since her recorded salary was more than mine, owing to Mommy's deceit. The finest aspect? The court expressly noted their taped chat about defrauding me in the verdict. But wait, there's more. Remember how Poppy runs that network of boutique clothes stores? Apparently, the tax fraud inquiry initiated by our divorce case has opened a huge bag of worms. Her stores are being audited, and word has it, she's likely to lose her business. Last night, my phone burst with calls and texts. Harper weeping about how she's about to be evicted from her apartment because she can't afford rent without her job. Poppy threatening to ruin me. I emailed that one right to Bradley. Various winged monkeys informing me I'm cruel for wrecking 2 women's lives. You know what I did? I got a pizza, opened up a beer, and blocked their numbers one by one. Then I phoned the realtor. Turns out that house we were intending to buy suddenly came back on the market at a lesser price. Guess who's making an offer tomorrow? This time it'll be in my name solely. The karma train isn't done yet. Harper's former coworkers are coming up with additional dirt about her unethical transactions. Poppy's other children, who she messed over years ago, are pursuing their own claims. Their whole house of cards is falling, and I'm just sitting back, enjoying the show. Best part? I never had to do anything illegal or insane, just gathered facts, stayed quiet, and let them destroy themselves with their own deeds. Sometimes retribution is best served by just letting karma do its course. Edit 1. since people are asking. Yes, Harper tried to break into my flat last night. Security cameras filmed everything, and she's now facing a restraining order. Keep digging that hole deeper, honey. Edit 2. Just got word that Poppy's main shop location is closing down. Next. Karma actually said hold my beer on this one. Told her wife and Mill attempted to defraud me and ended up losing their jobs, facing legal difficulties and receiving precisely what they deserved. Don't play dumb games if you can't take stupid costs.